cider vinegar.
Hey everyone, it's Jeff Stick from Tylerica Marketing Systems in Austin, Texas, and today we have Ken Tucker and Paul Barthel from Changescape Web in St. Charles, Missouri, and Ian Kentel from Outsourced Marketing in the Toronto area. I got to get your town down one of these days. I always just say Toronto area, Ian. Thanks guys for joining me on the podcast, and thanks to all of our viewers and listeners for joining us. So today we're going to discuss social media trends in 2024, and I know we're quite a bit of the way through 2024, but I mean it's an ongoing evolution, right? So we still have a few months left, and it'll carry into 2025, and then I'm sure we'll have an update sometime next year as things changed. But what sparked this is HubSpot has published a great report on this topic, and we're going to use that as the basis for today's discussion. Obviously, you can go read it yourself, but we want to kind of add our spin to it. And along the way, that's exactly what we want to do, add a little spin, a little insights, and a little bit of flavor. So we're going to kind of summarize that report and talk about it in terms of three broad themes: platform trends and the creator economy, content strategies for engagement, and tools and community building. So here we go. The first topic then, platform trends and the creator economy. Paul, let's start with you. Why are certain platforms gaining or losing popularity?
I don't know. I'm antisocial. But
we would never guess that.
Well, according to the HubSpot study that you mentioned, YouTube at some point this year, they surpassed both Instagram and Facebook as one of the top social media platform. And I don't know, is YouTube a social media platform? I guess they are. I mean, it's videos, long form video, short form videos, and it's basically it's a creator network, kind of like TikTok is, kind of like all of them are. But still, one of the most searched for videos on YouTube is still how-to videos. And because probably that's the best place to find them. But I think it's because it's versatile. You can post pretty much any kind of video on there, all kinds of different types of video content. And that's pretty much all YouTube does. It does one thing, and it does it really, really well. And I think that's a big part of it. TikTok, I'm not sure what people see in TikTok, to be honest. I mean, maybe it's the short videos and it's big with the younger generation. I don't trust TikTok. That's my opinion. I would not put it on my phone or my computer because I think China's intent is to steal your personal information, however, wherever and whenever they can. Twitter has been losing popularity. Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. And I won't comment on that, but there's probably different reasons for that. And I think the takeaway is small businesses that you need, and we've said this a million times in the past, you don't need to be on every social media platform out there. You need to be where your target audience is. And if your target audience is on TikTok, go buy a cheap computer, put TikTok on there, and don't connect it to anything. Don't put any personal information on there. I'm just going to say that. If you trust the Chinese government, have at it. Do whatever you want. I don't trust them.
Yeah, I think it's a key point is, be where your audience is, right? And as controversial as it is, TikTok is gaining a lot of ground, especially among Gen Z. So if you're targeting a Gen Z audience, you probably need to think of a way to leverage that. Yeah.
Just to put that into a bit of context. Yeah, I was just going to say, just to put that into a bit of context, though, in discussions with clients and prospects, they have this feeling like TikTok has over competed or is above all the other channels, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and it is gaining ground. In some ways, it's actually losing ground in other ways, which we'll get into later. But what I always find fascinating is the stats don't lie, right? And when you look at, first of all, you have to look at it through the lens of, is your business B2B or B2C? Because that's dramatically different channels. And in the B2B world, TikTok is way far behind. But even in the B2C world, business to consumer, it's at 39% market share according to this study, whereas YouTube's at 61, Instagram's at 53, Facebook 65, right? Like these are where brands are spending their money or spending effort. And I think that's an interesting differentiator that, yes, certain generations feel an affinity for it, but it's still far behind. And we've seen this with a lot of social media trends over the years where people see the shiny object because they hear about it. There's lots of buzz, but look at the stats before you invest too heavily in something that may or may not be where your customers are.
Yeah, and you know, Ian, I don't have any data in front of me to back this up, but I'll bet if you took that 39% market share of TikTok and you broke that out by demographics, it would overwhelmingly be Gen Z, like Jeff mentioned.
I think the other thing that's missing is buyer intent. You know, if you're trying to build your brand and you know, kind of make a statement about who your brand is, what you represent, what you think is important in the world, you know, then a platform like TikTok can be pretty good. If you're and you know, there's a lot of different aspects of what you're trying to do with social media. Part of it is brand building, but part of it is also getting people to take action when they're ready to take action. And you know, I think the challenge that a lot of businesses face is they get drawn in by the lure of any social media platform to a certain degree, but especially TikTok, because it's like, wow, look, this video had a gazillion, you know, views and comments and all this. And it's like, yeah, but it's only for entertainment. You know, it has nothing to do with getting people to make a buying decision. So you need to look at several different aspects about how you're using each channel, not just the popularity of the channel and not just if your audience is on that channel. What is your audience doing on that channel? Why are they on that channel?
What was cool about the study?
Oh, hey, look, a shiny thing over there.
All I was going to say is what's cool about the study, and it has weaknesses as well as strengths, this particular report from HubSpot. One of its strengths is that it's actually marketing centric, meaning the survey was to marketers of businesses to see where they're investing, where they're getting the best ROI, who is where they're getting their most engagement, which platforms have the best targeting tools, and in like all of those metrics, all of those key areas, TikTok is really far behind. And I think businesses would be surprised that Facebook is still one of the strongest platforms. YouTube is super strong, and Instagram's up there too. Like those ones have been pretty strong for quite a while, and they're still strong in some of the demographics that we're talking about as well. So, and just to answer Paul's, like, what's the attraction of TikTok? If you've ever been on it, which I know you probably haven't, it's just like, it's like brain candy floss, because it's just constantly like scrolling through videos. You're like, as soon as you show interest in one thing, you're seeing more of it. So it's, you know, just this circle of interest that is very captivating, and it sucks people in, right? And you can lose hours very quickly.
Yeah. And
speaking for a friend,
that's the downside of social media is that all of them is they box you in, so to speak. They continue to send you like-minded content, and that's a whole different discussion. But yeah, it's
like an echo chamber, right?
Yeah, exactly. It is. Yeah.
I want to just quickly, before we move on to the next question, go back to something you said, Ken, about buyer intent. Yeah, absolutely. Buyer intent. You've got to match up and think of what's going to move the ball forward to the goal line. At the same time, not everything, and I don't think you meant this, but I just want to clarify, not everything should be buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, right? There's a certain amount of leveraging social media just for the community building, just for the rapport, the branding, the brand awareness. And
yeah, absolutely.
If you put out, you know, as trite as it sounds, if you can put out a cheesy TikTok video, but it goes viral and it grows up brand awareness, then maybe that's not a bad thing. Eventually, you're going to lead to that. So again, I know you get it. I just wanted to kind of expand on that a little bit.
I did say, you know, that it could be important for branding and visibility. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But don't just look at a channel in a one-dimensional way. I mean, you have to think about, you know, we've talked about the buyer's journey before. Same thing applies on social media. I mean, you know, you've got to move people through the know, like, trust, try, buy, repeat, and refer process. And, you know, and so a lot of people, you know, just rush to go post a bunch of video on a platform, all of these platforms, because they all have really good, solid video capabilities, and they're creating video, but the videos doesn't really have any intent, and they're hoping that it will just be seen and shared and, you know, and increase brand visibility from that perspective. They forget about the other things that you need to be doing. You need to be thinking about building a funnel to move people through the journey, you know, as part of your social media posting strategy.
Right.
There's, you know, I always talk about 3 levels, which I'll talk about here in a minute, but, you know, there are at least 3 levels that I think every business needs to be looking at. And unfortunately, too many people, when they choose a platform and they put the effort in the platform, they're only thinking of a single level.
And 2 really quick things, because we're talking about platform, and this is a great place to start this discussion, is first of all, don't discount, like, I know in the US it's very controversial right now because of some of the legislation and some of the banning that is being attempted but hasn't really gone through, except in government facilities and stuff like that, organizations, right? And it seems to be stuck right now, according to the news. But I wouldn't discount TikTok, nor do I discount it for our clients. If that's where their prospective clients are, customers or future customers, then and we can easily work it into our mix without reducing where their core clients are right now, their core prospects, then why not? Like, it's just another video platform. If you create a video for TikTok, you can create it for Reels, you can create it for YouTube Shorts. The other thing I just wanted to mention, because I hear this less now, it used to be all the time when you were talking to people, but you mentioned virility, the websites going, or sorry, social posts going viral. That is the most horrible goal for any business I have ever encountered, because if you look at the stats, a video going viral is similar to your kid growing up to be a professional basketball player or sports star. Like, it's such a small percentage that you as a business should not be focused on going viral. You should be focused in creating content that engages, and it can be humorous, it can be serious, right? Like, you can create a mix of content, but man, don't make your goal and your measurement going viral, because that's just bad business.
I agree, and I think your comparison to becoming a pro sports figure is right on the money. But organic growth is what I should have said. You know, if you can get things out there and then grow organically through sharing and exposure. Hey, before we move on, one last thing.
Pointed at you, Jeff. It was just
I think I'm the one who said that. So yeah.
But I heard it this week from a prospect, so I was like, "Ooh, bad thing to be talking about."
And then just to wrap this one up, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it now, whether you like Elon Musk or whether you think he's a Bond villain, whether you think Twitter or X have gotten too controversial. Well, again, back to your target market, your target audience. If your target audience is all over Twitter, then it may not be a bad place to advertise. If you're trying to be broad-based and more, not taking a stand, then maybe it's not a great place to be. I know a lot of companies pulled out because they didn't want to be associated with some of the direction it was heading.
Yeah.
So
and if you're looking at earned media, you know, there are a lot of journalists, so many journalists still on X, and it's probably the best opportunity you have to reach the journalists from a social media platform.
Yeah, that's a good point.
If you're looking, you know, if you're trying to get that earned media where media is covering you for free, where you're not paying for advertising and they're doing stories or sharing your content with the community, just through a retweet or whatever, X is going to be, is it a re-X now instead of a retweet?
They still use the term Twitter and tweeting.
I know. I couldn't
world.
resist. I couldn't resist.
Rex,
yeah.
So let's move on and we got a lot to go through. I'm watching the clock already. Yeah, we may split this into 2 sessions. We'll see how we get through it. But it's good stuff in here. That was a great report and good conversation, you guys. Ian, how can small businesses leverage local creators or micro-influencers?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting question because I don't think a lot of businesses do this. I think, first of all, it's vital for the business. And I always take a step back with conversations like these because I think if you just focus on the question itself, it can get lost that you need to have a strategy. An overarching marketing strategy, and your social media plan needs to fit within that marketing plan, which I think we all agree on. So, for example, I mentioned B2B versus B2C. If you're a B2B business, then influencer marketing may be, in fact, it's rarer in B2B, I find, than in B2C. Because B2C, you see lots of influencers, you see makeup influencers, you see food influencers, you know, cars, whatever it is. Consumers are more easily swayed in their decision making. I think partly because you have less to answer for sometimes as a consumer than you do as a business. Sometimes if you answer to a boss, you answer to a team, so your decisions are, yes, emotional based to some degree, but you also have to back them up with logic from a B2B standpoint, right? So, of course, if you're a small business owner, then sometimes you can make whatever decisions you want. So, but I think having that, first of all, overarching strategy is really important. But if your product is aesthetic in nature, like if you're an esthetician, if you're a cosmetic surgeon, for sure you could go after influencers. But I would always say, where does this fit in your overarching marketing plan? What's its priority related to how is it going to help us achieve our goals? And how much budget are we going to put towards it, right? And this is a really good question you should be asking yourself related to influencers, because usually you have to pay influencers in some form or another in order to get them to be your influencers versus your competitors. So I think that's a really important question that we as business owners have to make, in that, are you going to be cutting some other form of marketing that could easily outperform influencer marketing? You need to take that into account 100% before going down this road. Now, assuming it fits within your strategy, now that I've been long-winded about the strategy part, you can identify who local creators and influencers are in your area by looking at just social media, like using tools like BuzzSumo, influencer.co, find out who the micro influencers are, who has lots of followers, who has lots of engagement. Post numbers don't really matter. It's the engagement rates. It's the number of comments that people are doing. And make sure you do the homework of actually following them, looking at what they're saying, seeing if there's brand alignment. Because if there's no brand alignment, like if they're jerks, you probably don't want to align your brand to them, right? If they're saying bad stuff or political things that don't align with your personal views or might turn off your customers, you got to take all of that into account, because influencer marketing is very focused on the person who's delivering the message and their followers. So, but if you can identify somebody like that in your area, and I would suggest in big cities, you'll probably find a bunch of influencers. In smaller cities, less so, if you're looking for a local person. But if you broaden your search, your chances of finding an influencer grow. But again, if you only sell in a specific geographic area, how good is an influencer going to be, truthfully, if they can't even reach the people you're trying to reach? So again, never lose sight of who your target audience is. Follow them, get a feel for them. Look at the actual comments. We had a recent experience where one of our clients wanted us to do something on social. And so they presented us with, hey, here's one of our competitors. Here's what they're doing. They've got lots of views on their video on TikTok. They've got lots of comments. Except when we went to actually dig into the details, because they just kind of saw the nice shiny objects out there. And we looked at the comments, they were all negative, not one positive comment. So yes, they got engagement, but the engagement was horrible. It was disastrous. You would never want that for your business. So you have to do the homework. You're aligning efforts. And then of course, the next step is get in contact with those people if you feel there's a fit. And then feel out with them, what could a partnership look like, an influencer or creator partnership. Have a plan in mind. You need to have your goals clearly defined. Like what is my objective in this? Of course, it's probably sales of some form, but how are we going to link those back to this influencer? What key metrics are we going to use? And what's mutually beneficial to both of us? Because they're building their personal brand as much as you're building your brand. And so they want to see a mutually beneficial alignment with what they're doing. Sometimes it's just money, but other times it's like they're looking at this as a stepping stone to going bigger and better.
Yeah, that's a good bridge into the next question. I think you hit on a couple of it, but Ken, maybe dig in a little deeper. What are the steps to start a successful creator partnership?
Yeah, so you should absolutely do research and invest in some time and effort to try to find the right influencers. As Ian said, you don't want to pick somebody that's going to represent your brand in an inconsistent or non-consistent or even inflammatory way. Most of the time, I suppose there's an opportunity for people to decide to try to go controversial from time to time for whatever reason. I think that's a really risky proposition. Bright Social, which is another social media posting tool, has a great article if you're looking for additional influencer marketer tools to help identify other influencers. Ian, you're exactly right. In smaller markets, actually the community kind of acts as a macro influencer already. We've got clients in, I don't know, probably 60-mile radius where there are 40,000 people who live in that area. And the community, that's how they communicate. They don't have traditional media outlets. They don't have they may have a little bit of a newspaper, but they don't have TV or radio of any consequence. So the community pulls together and communicates and shares information across the board. And it's just it's a communal thing. Absolutely. If you're in a bigger market, a city that has, well over 1 million people, there will be people that you want to reach out to potentially that do have the influencer capability. So you want to make sure you're working to identify the right people. Then you need to set the clear goals. What are your expectations? What are their expectations? I think what's missing in a lot of instances is what's the offer? What is going to give the fuel to the influencer? The influencer has the connections. They have, the following already built. But if you don't have a compelling offer that they can be the spokesperson for, they're probably not going to do it, one. And two, if they do it, it's liable to fall flat or embarrass them, which again is one of the reasons why they wouldn't do it. So you've really got to think through, what is the offer, and also, what are you really wanting to accomplish? Are you wanting to increase sales, just increase brand awareness, visibility? For most smaller businesses, serving a local service area, for example, like a roofer, does it really make sense to have an influencer if your capacity is only that you can only have 3 to 5 crews busy at any given time? But if you're a roofer that has 40 crews, now maybe you can really legitimately look at an influencer. So you have to also think about what happens if there is success. If they do get me out in front of will it choke and throttle my business to the point where I can no longer deliver and support my customers? I get an influx of business that all I have to do is turn away, which may piss off or alienate people from ever wanting to do business with you again. So, you really have to think through, not only what goals you want, but what happens if it wildly succeeds. What is the potential repercussion for your business? And I don't think a lot of people think about that. And honestly, I don't think that's a big problem for most people who are trying to use local influencers. For larger brands, and that's one of the things that I want to caution everybody about is, we tend to focus really on small businesses on this podcast. That's why it's in the name of the podcast. Influencers to me generally are things that you have to be a bigger business. So you have to be on the bigger side of a small business, not a smaller side. And honestly, there are a lot of business owners who actually become their own influencers in a very effective way. And so again, sometimes maybe the power of the influencer is just the power of the founder's voice. And maybe they have a natural aptitude for it. Maybe if they don't, then you might want to look at the influencer. You definitely have to go through a process, do a formal reach out. You utilize some of the tools Ian talked about that are also mentioned in maybe like the Sprout Social. And, I think you want to define the collaboration. You want to figure out, are you just going to turn the influencer loose? Or do you want to review what they're going to try to do beforehand? What are your expectations? What are their expectations? What are the deliverables? And then ultimately, what is the compensation? Because, it could be that some influencers, especially in a smaller market, maybe even, a decent sized metro area, maybe they don't really care about monetary pay. Maybe what they would rather have is, in-kind services. Maybe they get a new roof on their house, or they get, in lieu of a payment of some kind, or, roof is maybe a little too pricey of an example, maybe not. But, is there some kind of trade-off that forms in effect a compensation? And then you just need to measure and track what's going on. And so you should have tools in place to be able to do that.
So I think summarizing, I heard approach it strategically, have a plan, expect that there's going to be give and take with an influencer. I mean, they have put a lot of effort and a lot of their own resources, their own time into building their following, and to expect to, hey, I'm going to send them a bottle of my secret sauce and they're just going to love it so much they're going to tell everybody about it for free is unrealistic, right? And then, work it collaboratively. Yep. All right, so let's move to the next our second of our themes, which is content strategies for engagement. So Ian, how can businesses create authentic content that resonates with their audience?
Yeah, I think the key is, first of all, understanding your audience. We've talked a bit about that, right? If you don't know your audience, how are you going to create anything that resonates? I think the other side of that too is being a researcher. So actually looking at what is connecting with that audience right now, right? Look at what they're consuming. Are they consuming a million memes? Are they consuming how-tos? Are they, right? Like it will be a shortcut for you and a easy button if you actually figure out first what is connecting with them. Understanding their interests, their pain points, their values. You should know this as a business anyways, but it becomes really important when you start to create content of any kind, but specifically for social media. And the beautiful thing about social media is if you have enough followers, you will know immediately, like I'm talking within minutes to hours, if something resonates with your audience or not. On most channels, right? LinkedIn might take a little bit longer, but on a lot of the channels, it's like, boom, we launch something, we get negative or positive feedback. So it's great that way. It's actually a really good testing method if you want to. But some of the things you can create are things like behind the scene looks into your business, customer stories, employee highlights to humanize your brand. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest overlooked areas. Obviously, you can talk about your products, your services, all of those kind of things, but bring in the human element. And I think, I don't know if we talk about this later, but memes is one of the highest engaged forms of content right now. I think the other thing you need to look at too is which platforms are most engaging to your audience. So in this study that we're referencing, the platforms that are getting the most engagement for brands are YouTube at 23%, Instagram at 23%, Facebook at 22%, TikTok at 13%, and Twitter at 7%, right? So, TikTok's at 13%, something to take into consideration. But if you wanted to reach, 70% of your market or 60% of your market, potentially, again, it depends on your particular ideal customers. If you hit YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, like you're probably rocking, right? As far as doing that. So going back to, so the reason I mentioned the platform again is because you can create all the engaging content you want, but if you're putting it on platforms where your customers aren't, or your ideal prospects aren't, and you're creating content that they don't want or like, and on platforms that they don't engage on, then you're just wasting your time, essentially, right? Yeah. Wasting your time, energy, and money.
Going back to the first question where Paul raised the very valid question, is YouTube even a social media platform? And it is in the sense that you can build followerships and people can get notified when you put content out and they can comment on it. But I don't view it as being as active socially as some of the other platforms. But it is a great place to put a lot of resources and to put that authentic content, that voice of the customer content. And it is itself a search engine. I think people will find things on YouTube via search more than they would on, say, X or Instagram. Sure, Facebook, Instagram, they have search capability, but I think most people are going to YouTube with search intent unless they're going there to just follow the stuff they're interested in.
Yeah.
So
you're right.
Speaking of Paul, let's go.
Yeah. Well, can I jump in and follow on some? So
and I want to finish a few thoughts too, Ken.
Okay. So one of the things that businesses need to be really aware of is social media fools you with its false metrics. Don't fall into the trap of thinking that you're getting engagement when you see, oh wow, 6 people like that post, or did this or did that. Drill down into it. Look at multiple. I've got a client, they pay somebody independent of us to go do social media posting. They were asking me to help validate, are they in fact doing what they're supposed to be doing on a regular basis, and is it doing anything for them? The reality is they were getting on average 2 to 4, maybe 8 likes or, whatever per post. When you look at it, it's the same people every single time. And then, or it's other businesses that business is posting for. Those other businesses are liking the post. So they're basically invisible, but the company that's doing this posting for them is trying to deceive them, honestly, to think that they're getting some engagement. And it's the same 6 people or pages almost every single time. It's not reaching anybody else. And you need to understand how the algorithms deliver content. It's based on if people who are following the page or posts or whatever, or the profile, if they're actually engaging with the content. If they're not, you could become largely invisible to them in a fairly quick time. You may have liked their page 6 months or a year ago, or their profile, started following them, whatever. If you haven't continued to engage with content that they're posting, it's going to drop out of your news feed, and you're going to be doing a lot of work that you think is really important. And there is some importance to, posting regularly on social media, but you're basically invisible. So you need to, don't take the metrics at face value. You need to drill down and see, okay, well, I'm getting this number of likes or engagements, but what does that really mean? And oh gosh, it's the same people over and over and over again. Okay, then it's basically doing nothing for me.
Yeah, let's also say that likes are a vanity metric, right? Everyone's, a lot of people like me. Well, so what? right?
Well, or
And
even
when you talk
comment.
about engagement, it's comments, people making
Yeah.
meaningful comments, and it's people sharing what you're doing. Go ahead, Ian.
Or it's hearting your, right, liking your
Right.
video or whatever in Instagram.
Right.
That's why Instagram is
Yeah.
such a high engaged platform according to the metrics, because it's super easy to like something. Because the question was related to creating content, I just wanted to finish up a few thoughts, because we went down a path that I started, which was kind of strategic kind of thinking. But when it gets, so you've determined your platform, you've determined your strategy, use real people, use real team members, you use real customers, patients, whatever you are. Make sure you get waivers for everything, including your own staff, unless it's written into their contract. And by waivers, it can be super simple. Just like, we agree to allow X company to use our images, photos, videos, whatever it is, words to support the brand, right? And make it really, really easy to create content. And what I mean by that is, especially in small businesses, you have a limited number of creators or producers of that content. And the only way to produce authentic content creation sustainably, and I stress that word sustainably, because all the time when we do audits, we see companies who have done this burst of social media 2 years ago. And when you ask them, hey, do you guys post regularly on social media? And they're like, oh yeah. And then you run the report and it was 2 years ago, the last post. You're like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
So make it easy, invest in good microphones, have some good lighting for your videos. If you want to do higher quality, hire a videographer or a photographer. And then, as Ken said, measure, optimize, watch how people react, look at what popular topics, so you can create more content, but make it easy for yourself. I think I can't stress that enough, because I see that's where it falls down more often than not, especially when you're using the business owners, the subject matter experts. If it's not easy, it won't get done.
Mm-hmm.
And
so Paul, real quick,
just don't overtag people. Yeah. That's so annoying, and it will drive people away if you're constantly tagging them every time you post.
Yeah, be very, very careful with the use of @everyone. I hate that. I get notifications that you were mentioned, and then I go look, and no, I wasn't mentioned. It's not meaningful to me. It's somebody's just trying to get everyone's attention. That's so phony. Hey, real quick, Paul, what are some tips for creating compelling short form video content?
I must point out, am I the only one that sees the irony in this question?
I think that's why you got that question, Paul.
Avatar.
Really get you thinking about creating content.
Well, all right, obviously, if you're talking about short form content, you have to get their attention quickly, like within the first few seconds. That's kind of, everyone has probably heard that a million times, and it's short form content, so keep it short. A 10-minute video is not short form content. And use captions, because on a lot of platforms, the video will start without sound. So use captions, and a lot of people actually deliberately watch videos without sound. So captions are really important. I'll keep it short here because I know we're running out of time. Leverage, if there's anything trending in your industry or that's relevant to your brand, talk about that. Educate people about that. And don't do this on every piece of short form content, but mention your product, your service, and how it can make people's lives better.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the best ways to create short form content is to create long form content, right? Like videos, podcasts, interviews. Like, if you can, sometimes it's hard for businesses to wrap their head around, like, oh, what am I going to create for a short, punchy video? But if you have longer form content, you can trim that, you can clip it. There's AI tools to help with that. Like, it gets a lot easier. You just need raw content sometimes.
Yeah. Hey, Paul, I do want to point out, there's a big trend toward so-called faceless video right now. You don't have to be on, for our viewers, listeners, you don't have to put yourself on camera or put your staff on camera.
Oh yeah,
You
and
know,
there's
even
whiteboard style videos or whatever they call them.
yeah. There's the explainer videos, animated videos, or even just stock photos and images, but with voiceovers or with the captions on it. So video doesn't have to be you on camera.
Yeah.
Let's jump down to the third topic. I think we had maybe we'll come back to them in the roundup if we have time, but let's jump down to the tools and community building. So staying with you, Paul, do you want to run through some of the accessible tools? And I know there's a lot of AI tools coming on board, but some of the accessible tools that people, small businesses can use to work in this social media arena?
Yeah, and again, I'll keep it short. So obviously everyone's heard of ChatGPT, and after I go through these, I have a few caveats. Canva, there's a free version of Canva. Keep in mind, you kind of get what you pay for.
But even then, it's not expensive. I mean, it's less than $100 a year.
They just raised their prices.
Oh, did they?
Significantly. Yeah.
Really? All right.
Yeah, it's coming up in September.
Well, that's because they added the AI feature.
That's
AI is expensive.
It is, and there's one out there. I don't really know much about it. It's called Hootsuite Insights. If somebody knows more about that, they can talk about it. I think it's for social listening and analytics. Isn't that what it does?
Yeah, Hootsuite's been around a while. They're one of the platforms where you can go and manage all of your social media accounts from one place, which is kind of cool. But then they can pull in the analytics and all too. So
yeah.
And then there's something called Lumen 5 that helps you create video content from blog posts and articles, things like that. Grammarly has an AI feature that will help make sure that your content is grammatically correct. But the thing about it, it's really less about the platform you use and more about knowing how to use the platform properly and efficiently. And that's really big with ChatGPT. It's all about the prompt. If your prompt sucks, the result it gives you is going to suck. So it's really more about knowing how to use the platform than what platform you actually decide to use.
Yeah, what's missing in that list is, a whole set of content repurposing tools, which is, I think, where there's real gold. You've got Opus Pro for, short form, taking long form video, turning it into short form. You've got Exemplary AI, which does a variety of things. Also including, just taking excerpts. It'll do transcripts, and then it takes excerpts, turns it into tweetable content, as well as the short form video. You've got Write Sonic, where you could put a blog post in and it'll chop it up and create small bite-sized social media posts that can help drive traffic to a longer form piece of content like a blog. So, that's, to me, and these are, it uses AI. A lot of tools could just kind of do that rotely, but it uses AI because it tries to really analyze the content and find, this is the juicy morsel that I need to be able to pull out and leverage for social media.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the key takeaways here is there are a lot of AI tools anywhere from ideation to writing to producing to distributing and analyzing. And it's pick and choose the right ones. Don't say, that's all too hard, I can't get it done, because the tools help. They offload a lot of the heavy lifting, and they're not all that expensive. So
one last thing too. There's there are tools that will one of the things that we kind of skipped over due to time is humor. AI can be pretty good at a lot of what I call the blocking and tackling level posts that need to be done.
Funny though.
Quotes. It usually isn't very funny, but it can be. But getting quotes, fun facts, some humor, things like that really kind of fill in the gaps to keep you visible and maybe drive a little bit of engagement. AI can be pretty good at that. Just don't set it and forget it and think that it's going to represent your business accurately. It can even generate your images using AI for you for these posts. We've got a tool that does that. But it doesn't, you have to go review that content before you post it. 80% of it may be great, but the 20% could really be embarrassing. Yeah, exactly. So, but use it because it's a real time saver. And part of social media posting is just blocking and tackling. You have to do a certain amount of it just to have a chance to be visible, to train the algorithms, to get people to serendipitously find, oh, that's a good post. I'm going to like that post. If you're paying attention to what's going on, if they like your post, you can invite them to like your page or, follow you. So it's a way to, organically grow.
Mm-hmm.
The truth here too is that almost unless you're so small and you're in a high growth or startup phase, most businesses should not be wasting their time creating their own social content for the most part. And the reason I say this specifically related to tools is because we're in the industry, and the number of tools that we've been playing with for the last 2 to 3 years is monumental. And the ones we cast aside because they suck is monumental. And all we're looking for as experts in the field is tools that give us the end product that we need of the quality that we need in a cost efficient way, and especially a time efficient way. And I have had clients who have gone down the path of chasing tools, and it's a huge waste of time because ultimately their time is better served producing the service, like doing the service or product that they exist for, rather than like even having a receptionist or a junior person focused on this kind of stuff can be a huge waste of time. Not that every business is like that. I just caution businesses to watch out because social media is so accessible that they might fall down that rabbit hole very quickly and spend enormous amounts of energy in it, and the return would be so small.
Ian, you just gave me an idea for a new campaign. We weed out the AI tools that suck so you don't have to.
And more are coming up every single day.
Yeah,
right.
I think a lot of them are saying they're AI and they're not really. I mean, that's we could do a whole other show on that.
Yeah.
So let's see, where were we on our, I guess just anything else to add on, Ian, on AI help or creating engaging and personalized content, not specifically tools, but just the kinds of things you can do with it, or do we hit that sufficiently?
I would add to a point that Ken talked about, which is the iterative process. AI tools can aid you in the creation. And I've said the word stress a few times today, but they aid you in the content creation process. They don't do it magically. It feels magical to some degree because it can do some things really well. But from our experience, we do this every day, all day for our clients. AI only gets us 60 to 70% of the way down the path to a finished product. And it is getting better because, a year ago, it was 25 to 30% of the way. So it's getting better. It's learning, but don't be misled into thinking, because all of the ads you'll see on Facebook and Twitter and some of the influencers that talk about the tools and who are trying to sell you tools will say, this is the most extraordinary tool. It's AI, which is a buzzword, right? You click it and boom, you've got your social content for the month. It doesn't happen today that way. I can guarantee it for every listener on this podcast.
I think Paul said it. It's in the prompts, right?
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. If you get close to achieving that, that means that you have to spend a lot of time with the quality prompts.
Yeah.
Trust me, I know. I just went through that.
Even with the prompts, it's not.
Sure.
It depends on the tool, right? And it depends on. There's so many factors that I think people chase after these tools without knowing that because of the buzz.
Yeah.
So let's jump back away from the tools, maybe to the more general concepts. Ken, what strategies can businesses use to foster a strong social media community?
Yeah. I mean, I think you've got to post regularly, one, but then you also have to post strategically. So, Ian, you talked about, that maybe a business doesn't spend the time and energy to run all of their social media, but at the end of the day, some of the most effective engagement worthy and community building content is going to come from the voice of people within your business.
Totally agree.
So don't take on the task of recording a video and then spending hours editing it, chopping it up, doing that. Provide the raw content to somebody who can do that for you, so that you can go focus on the more important things that you need to do for business. But you still have to provide a certain amount of raw content, even if it's, an employee anniversary. If we're doing social media posting for a business, we don't know when their employees' start dates were or what their anniversary dates were. So you still have to have communication, with the provider. And ideally, instead of just posting something, you're posting something that looks visually consistent to reinforce your branding. And, and so you can take time to learn that and do that through Canva if you want, or you can just, rely on somebody to do that. I like to look at 3 layers of content. It's the basic blocking and tackling, just posting content that's helpful, that's useful, that adds value. May not get a whole lot of traction, but it's there, and it's seen, and it's just kind of like a display ad. It's like it's helping you maintain that top of mind. But then you need to take it to the next level. The second level is where you're getting behind the scenes content, owner, founder content, how-to content, maybe some humorous things that you see throughout the nature of doing your job, some things like that. And then the next level of content that I typically talk about is content that's really designed to try to be engagement worthy, where you're maybe asking polls, or you're posting famous quotes from people that you think is going to be appealing to the people who are interested in your brand, that are consistent with, the messaging that you want. Because a lot of people love to go comment on, a quote from like Brene Brown or somebody like that, just a quote machine like that. You post that on your profile, you're going to get some pretty decent engagement. You're going to get people not only to like or heart or whatever, they're also going to comment on it. And when they comment on it, it just increases the potential for visibility. Another great engagement worthy piece of content, I think, is, and it works a lot better and easier, honestly, in some industries than others. But it's like, if you're a coffee manufacturer, you sell coffee. If you're stranded on a desert island and you could only have one flavor of coffee or one roast of coffee for the rest of your life stranded on this desert island, which would you choose, this or this?
I'm just glad there's a coffee machine there.
Yeah, exactly. So, so you want to kind of think about that. For a lot of businesses that have a physical place of business, use your physical place of business as a social platform. Host events, share photos, videos, live streams from these events. Take advantage of the fact that you're paying rent for a physical space, and turn that into a way to have social media content. I think is a really overlooked thing. Ian, I don't know if any of your dentists do that, with open houses or anything, but to me, that seems like it's a missed opportunity if you're not doing it, because you're already paying a lot for the space. Yeah. I think in most dental offices these days, the ones that I've been to lately, they're trying to make them like spas. So why wouldn't you want to show those off on social media and have walkthroughs and have people who are saying, wow, this, I didn't know going to the dentist could be, a refreshing experience instead of a traumatizing experience, whatever. User generated content. I mean, this is where you strike absolute gold if you can get users to generate content and represent your business. They do that. They're not influencers, because you have to pay influencers. These are people who just love your business. They want to become advocates and champions, and they want to share it with the rest of the world. It doesn't get any better than that. And then ultimately you just need to, whatever you do, you should try to be authentic and transparent. Don't play games. Don't you know, I mean, eventually it's going to be pretty easy to get called out on stuff like that. So I think it's just really, which I think applies to pretty much any type of content anywhere you're going to put it.
I think and that toward that latter point, I've seen, you know, some services that will get you, again, vanity metric, tons of likes.
Right.
And boy, it's not hard for somebody to look at who's in this community and see a bunch of foreign sounding names going, yeah, that's probably not authentic.
and what, you know, what that does is it makes it really hard for you to now go look and see what are your real true analytics.
Right.
You know, again, you know, a lot of people are driven by vanity. You know, in certain platforms like Instagram or Twitter or X, you know, having a larger number of followers can have some benefits potentially, but on Facebook, it actually can kind of choke out the visibility that you might normally have, because you've got all of these people who you bought that liked your page artificially. Now you have a hard time figuring out, why are my engagement metrics so bad? Well, it's because nobody, I mean, you know, people, if you have 80% of the people who like your business page on Facebook who are not anywhere near
your business,
then, you know, it's going to make it really hard to analyze that.
Yeah.
You know, what's interesting is this study really didn't zoom in or zone in on probably the biggest challenge in social media for businesses, and that's growing your following, right? Growing your audience on social. Yes, you have to create engaging content. Yes, you got to understand your audience, but everything is stacked against you on social media as a business, right? Because they want you to pay in order to get visibility. But the goal, the golden egg that you're looking after, is organic reach. And so I think that's like, that could be another topic for another day, I think, is how to increase followers on your social channels as a business, because I think that's the biggest problem that most businesses face today. And, you know, the study talked a little bit about, you know, where do you see, which channel do you see giving you the greatest growth in your audience this year? But it didn't actually zone in on, you know, what strategies are you going to employ to grow your followers aggressively?
And honestly, and, you know, I mean, I think looking forward, we're only going to see the acceleration of social media platforms become pay to play to really get any value out of them from a business perspective. You know, personal, that's a different animal, right? I mean, and if you're in a business where you can build up your own personal brand, you know, that we're not really talking about that. We're talking about doing it, you know, as a business entity, and, you know, it's accelerated pay to play. I think the other thing is, with the influx of AI, expect more and more hassles, because AI is, you know, it's assume you're guilty, and then you have to go prove that you're innocent.
Don't get me started.
It's really annoying.
One of the things you talked about was the metrics, and Jeff talked about them as vanity metrics. The challenge every business has is, we're doing all of this social media activity, or we're going to invest in all of this social media activity. How do we measure, right? And so I had a conversation with a prospect this week, and, you know, other than the vanity metrics, even the engagement metrics are vanity metrics on a lot of platforms. But unless you can tie it to actual sales, appointments, phone calls, form fills, which is where call tracking and analytics, like deeper analytics tools, start to come into play. Pixels help, right? The different pixels, but then we're getting into like privacy issues now. And
not for very long, they don't.
Cookieless world. But that is the biggest challenge to businesses, next to what we already talked about, right? And that's like, how do you measure success on these platforms other than, well, we're getting some good brand awareness, right? And that's usually not the goal of the business.
So I think we're coming up on the hour. I've got one more question. We need to hit it quick. I was going to do it as a follow-on to your question, Ken, but we've kind of diverged a little bit. So let me go back to Ian. I think you hit on this a minute ago a little bit, so that's why I want to go back to you to follow up on it. The difference between community management and social media management. Can you hit on that real quick?
Yeah, I mean, community management is really. In fact, I think this was actually for Ken. So,
yeah, that's what I was going to do as a follow-on to his question, but I think you were starting to get into it a minute ago. That's why I wanted to.
Yeah, I would just say community management is really, if you can build a community for yourself on the social channels. So most of those are like Facebook. I think LinkedIn might have a bit of this. Twitter has a little bit of this, or X, but it's where you actually have a signed up, captivated audience. That's how I view community. You guys jump in if you have a different definition, but in the circumstances I'm in, where one of the niches we serve is dentistry. We're in a bunch of community groups that others have created, where it's just the people that are interested in that industry that spend time on there, and all the questions, all of the answers, everything is ideally targeted to those people. And if you can create a community like that, if you can create your own group and get people to come on it, it is fantastically powerful. We all of us in one form or another, I'm sure, are signed on with coaches or marketing groups, where we have paid a subscription fee to be part of this training. And then part of that automatically becomes a community group, because that's where you get the authentic interactions between like-minded people that can support each other. I'm not sure if that's where you were going with that, Jeff, but that's
I'll just jump in. I mean, community management requires that you really build and nurture your followers to keep them within the group. Make sure that they feel like they're still in the group and that they're contributing in a meaningful way. Could be moderating, making sure that if many times these groups prohibit you from posting overtly promotional content, and inevitably somebody will make that statement, and so somebody needs to be assigned moderation responsibility to say, hey, wait a minute, and remove that post, and then maybe reach out to the person and say, we don't tolerate this. The next time we're going to remove you from the community or whatnot. And on the social media side, it's not quite as stringent, because it's a more open, broader community. So it's really going to be more planning, creating the content, scheduling it, looking at the metrics and how things are performing, but not necessarily, and obviously responding to, to comments that people are posting on your page. That's still going to be the same on the social media management side versus the community management. But the community management really is all about building and fostering the community to make sure that they still feel connected, and that there's a value that's being added, and not having people violate the terms of what the purpose of the community is in the first place.
Yeah, I think for me and Ian, the thought you triggered, which is why I went back to you, the question is the more authentic content, authentic engagement. Social media management can be very mechanical. You can outsource that. Somebody can look at your website, they can develop social media posts based on the content there without knowing anything about you or your business. But to truly build a community, you've got to be more authentic. You've got to be more involved and engaged. You need to respond to posts, so it brings the business owners and the key staff back into the mix to build that sense of community with their followers. I mean, Ken, you mentioned some of the communities that we're involved in, and it is very much the authority figures in the businesses that are involved actively in the community, not just delegating it. Paul, anything you want to add on that question, or any other topics before we wrap it up?
I think we can wrap it up.
All right, Ian, you want to take us out?
Sure thing. This was a great topic, Jeff. Thanks for leading us down this path, and I hope our listeners and viewers got a lot out of this. Remember to share. Remember to like it if you actually like it. Share it with people that you think will get value from it. That's how we get greater exposure. We are all committed to sharing insights, tips, our knowledge to help small businesses become better marketers. So please share the wealth. And also, until next week, keep calm and market on, folks.